Screen. There we go. So I'll explain to you how you get this recording afterwards. Yeah, all the audio is working. Great. Okay, so welcome to the first session.
Yes, thank you.
How did you find me, by the way?
My wife found you. But,
right.
you know,
Okay.
we
Yeah,
listen
that's
to,
right.
We listen to Missed Apex all the time.
Okay.
You know, so we listen to you when you're on.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks to your wife for finding me. Sorry it's taken so long to actually to meet. So you can actually stop sharing your screen with me now. We can save some bandwidth. And you're welcome to keep the camera on you. That's also completely fine. But you can end your stream of the screen sharing. It's sometimes useful if there's a webcam looking at your steering. So if I could see from behind you, seeing physically how you're steering, that is useful. But the camera facing you, you don't need to worry about. You can turn it off so you know I'm not just staring at your face whilst you're driving around. Yeah. That wouldn't be on the recording anyway because Discord is on a separate computer. Okay,
I'm still getting this green screen. Does that matter? I can't close that.
So in the middle of you've got those little circles. Yeah, that's it. Hit that one. You got it. Well done. Okay. Awesome. But you can still see my screen on Discord, right? And you can still see me waving. You don't have to be looking at me whilst you're driving. It's just so when you're finished a session, we can come back and you can look at this screen. Excellent. Cool. Okay. Right, so what we're going to do in between runs, and I'll tell you what we're going to do with the runs as well in a moment. What we're going to do in between is look at data. How familiar are you with looking at motorsport data? It said on your response you sent back to me that you weren't familiar at all, but I thought I'd ask you in person.
Very limited. Very, very limited.
Okay, you're going to be a complete expert at this after a couple of runs. So this is what it looks like. This is the screen we'll be using. You don't ever have to go and find this, but if you want to, you can. So I've given you exclusive access to this. So if you ever wanted to go back after a session and look at the data, in your Garage 61 profile, like I'm in mine here, you just go up to Analyze at the top. And because I've added you to it, it will be there. It'll be the only one there because it's the only one that I've added you to. And if we do more and more sessions, you'll see all of the sessions we've done in like a little kind of pile like this. But whilst we're looking at them, this is what we see. And essentially, Garage 61 is recording several channels of data. This is effectively identical to any professional race data system. So in Formula One, they're looking at a near identical thing to this, just with many more channels of data. But the key ones are always the same. Speed is the top one here, then throttle position, brake position, gear selection, engine revs, and steering angle. So effectively all the things the driver has some kind of influence over, because they're the things we care about. The colour of each of them, we can change the colour, and we will change as we add in more runs. But to begin with, generally the baseline is blue and the comparison lap is red. So in all of these, I'm the blue one, you're the red one, effectively. And I can, like anything you get used to, any system like this, I can read this like I'm looking at a lap. It's almost like watching your replay file by looking over this. And that's going to become similar when you've seen this a few times. So just as a brief overview from your practice data, and I know we're going to go set some different data in a minute, but I can already see that you're pressing the brake pedal quite a lot harder than me in a lot of places, which makes complete sense because I know how easy it is for you to get that brake pressure now. So one of the things we'll work on is actually getting you to consciously press the pedal less hard or less far in some areas. But we'll talk about that in more detail, and I'll give you some specifics to aim at once you've done another run. I can see from the speed trace, the speed is the most important one. If we could only have one trace, one channel here, it would be the speed, because you can see on the speed trace pretty much how hard you're braking, where you're braking. You can see how well you're accelerating. You can see your minimum speed in each of the corners. And I know this is probably obvious, but every peak on the graph is the top speed you achieved before you brake for a corner. Every trough on the graph is the minimum speed you achieved in a corner. And sometimes, if it's like a W shape, like your turn one here is, this red down, up, down, that means you've had two minimum speeds in one corner. And that then points us to an area we can look at. We've got another little W here, another little W here. Normally that's when you realise you've slowed down too much. You then speed back up into the corner, and then you have to slow down again when you actually get there. But that's like super common, and we'll look at all that in a bit. And I can also see you're in a higher gear than me around a lot of the track. So we're probably not using all the power the engine has to give, and that also tallies with the next one down, where your engine revs are quite a lot lower than mine for basically the whole lap. And obviously, if this car produces its peak power at the highest possible revs before it hits the limiter, you're not getting the benefit of all that power that the car has to give you. So that's something we'll look at too. And the final thing I can see, just from this one lap that we're looking at here, is you're also turning the steering wheel further than me in a few places, which also makes sense given the fact that your steering wheel wasn't calibrated fully. So you might have been turning it exactly the same amount as me, but the game would have been giving you more angle for that same amount. So we'll reserve judgment on that until I've seen you do some more laps. So anyway, that's a bit of an overview about what we'll look at after each run. And generally we'll go out, we'll agree a certain number of laps. Let's say 5 flying laps as a rough idea. That's normally enough to get the tyres up to temperature, get you settled in, and one of those laps should be roughly representative. But it's not set in stone. If we need more, you can just do more. And this car is really good because the tyres don't really go off. You can overheat them if you spin a bunch of times, but generally they're not going to like wear out over a session. They're just as quick after 10 laps as they are after 3 laps. So it's fine to do more and more laps in this car. So what we should start with is you just driving. We should go out and just do a first run. And I know it's not really a first run because you have done some practice here, but it's the first run of me watching you. I'll ride on board, I'll go behind. I just want to see where you're placing the car, what kind of lines you're doing. The data also shows us the lines, but it's nice to see it, in real time. So I know we've looked at those channels of data. The one thing I didn't mention was the GPS trace, which also shows us where you were on the track. But we'll look at that when we're looking at a specific lap after this run. So let's go for it. Let's go do some laps. I'll ride on board, and I'll keep quiet, except for, wow, my camera is completely screwed where my capture card had a problem. So it's going to be a bit of a weird view when you see this recording back. But yeah, I'll keep quiet unless there's something we particularly need to say. But feel free to shout. Feel free to ask me anything you want.
I don't know if I've ever been watched before. It's a little intimidating.
You might find you're quicker. Some people go better with the pressure. So I am going to talk right now. The tyres are obviously cold for the first couple of laps, so you probably know that in this car. But just don't judge it too much based on the first lap or 2 laps.
This corner always screws me up. I'm not very familiar with this track.
Okay, no problem. I'm going to make you very familiar by the end. I've just figured out how to fix my screen. There we go. All fixed.
Oh, see?
And don't worry about going off and making mistakes. It's not a problem at all. Like this is how we're going to dig down and make you better. So
Okay, good.
just drive exactly how you want. So damage is turned off, by the way, in these sessions. So if you do end up in the barrier, don't worry. Just carry on. The car will repair itself after about 3 seconds. And then it means you get to keep your tyre temperature. You don't have to get cold tyres going back to the pits.
Got it. Can I reset? Just reset.
Yeah, of course you can. It's fine.
Okay.
This is everything I'm seeing so far. It's all like really good information. So don't worry that you're not getting lap records. You know, this is all. This is why we're here. So it's all good stuff.
Is that gonna mess me up? Let's see.
What's that? I can clear penalties. So if you get a black flag or anything, I
Oh.
can just clear it.
Okay.
If you ever speed in the pit lane or cross the white line or whatever, just let me know, and then I'll clear it straight away. Otherwise, your lap times don't count if you've got a black flag. I've had people driving around for like 10 minutes, and I'm like, why are none of your laps appearing? And then it's like, oh yeah, I sped in the pit lane, I just didn't tell you. So all I'm looking for is a timed lap, so a complete lap that has a lap time attached to it, that you're relatively happy with. You know, where you'd say, yeah, that's pretty much like my normal driving on that lap. I didn't do anything weird, didn't crash on that lap. That was a nice little section. That looked way better.
I can have every once in a while a good rhythm, and then, yeah. I just don't have consistency yet.
So I'd consider that a really decent outlap. That was a really good outlap.
Okay. Yeah, that felt good. I didn't crash. I don't feel like I was pushing, but
You do
I
have
was
to
staying on the road.
Yeah, you have to underdrive it slightly on the cold tyres whilst you're getting used to it as well. And some maniacs put gravel all over the track in some of the corners too, so that'll make it more slippery.
Nope.
Don't worry, we're actually going to look back at that because that's going to be a really, really good talking point.
Mm-hmm. I'm used to driving with the, I know you're not supposed to, but I've only been iRacing for like 6 months, and
Okay.
very limited, not crazy.
Yeah.
It's lucky I find the opportunity to spend a lot of time on it. I've got kids and
Yep.
work and everything else, but I use the guide. I'm used to seeing the track guide that tells me when to brake.
Ah, so like the racing line on the track.
Yeah.
Got it.
And I've tried turning it off, and I find that, like, I want to drive without it, obviously, but like,
And-
if I'm racing in against anybody, I really kind of need it on.
So-
Otherwise, I'm not that competitive.
Forgive my ignorance. Is it on now, like in this session, or is it?
No,
Is that because I've got a setting where you can't put it on?
that's right.
Right. Okay.
I just started this league, and it was off. So
Okay.
I didn't try to turn it back on.
Okay. Fine. Yeah. So it might just be a default setting that I've got. So that's fine. That's good information to know that you normally run with that on, and I think a lot of people do. But I want to take the training wheels off pretty quickly on that one because I want you to know why you're going to take a certain line rather than just like following the paint by numbers version. So it'll be
Right.
much better when Like, for example, I would find it horrendously distracting having that turned on, because obviously you know what the line is. Why do we need this thing on? And we'll talk about how you figure that out. Sorry, I'm being very distracting talking to you, but well done for getting your quickest lap of the session on that last one. That was good. So let's do like maybe this one and one more if you think you're on a good one on the next one, and then we'll take the best of that set. So I'm not just making excuses for you. That is because your brake pedal is too easy to press. Like, I can see how much pressure came on there. If you had a firm brake pedal, that wouldn't have happened. You'd have just gently nudged it instead of it kind of slamming on the brakes for you.
I tried to adjust the settings on the brake to make it less sensitive.
Yeah.
So all the way down was like 80% or something.
Yeah.
Which I found was helpful, but then when I needed full braking, I wasn't getting it.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about that and how we can achieve something with that after this session as well. Ah, you're doing so well on that lap. So the car will repair itself. That's fine. You can just carry on. Just complete this lap anyway, just so we've got the data logged. Because it won't log it if you don't get to the end of the lap. And then we'll give you a little break.
Now I'm all over the place.
That's okay. Don't worry. Just get it over the line. And once this lap time is logged, just stop anywhere you want and exit the car. We'll let the data upload. And I'll show you some things. We'll talk about some things. So you can stop it anywhere you like just there. And just exit back to the garage. Right, I'm just going to rewind the tape here. Because I know that wasn't your best lap, that one, but there's some things on that particular final lap there that we can talk about. Whilst we've got that ready, let's grab your data. So you can look back at my screen now on Discord. If you're not there already. Let's find this. Right, so best lap here was 44.327. Let's add that to our analysis. Yeah, okay, so already in some areas you were way, way better than you were on the previous lap, which is why you're over 2 seconds quicker, so that's good. So we can immediately delete your other lap that we already had loaded, and we'll take this as our new baseline. So there we go, that's fine. Cool. Okay, but actually, the data I'm going to leave for the moment. We'll come back to this, and we're going to look at some onboard first of all, and we'll talk about some stuff, because the stuff is more important than the lap time right now. You're going to go so much quicker than you've gone now that, you know, that lap is going to be irrelevant later on. So let's just talk about some stuff. So let's watch you corner by corner. Now, you're not going to be able to hear this until you watch the video back. You'll have audio if you watch the YouTube video back. But right now, when you're watching my Discord, I don't think you can hear my audio. But I'll tell you if there's a thing that I'm hearing that I'm using to judge something. So first things first, you don't have the racing line turned on, and you've got a pretty good idea of what a racing line is. Every single corner, give or take a few, a meter or two, you are going from the outside to the inside to the outside. Like, you have an understanding that to open the corner up and to get the fastest possible speed through the middle of that corner, you need to give yourself the room. The wider to the edge you are on the approach, the less the steering angle will be through the corner. And it seems like you've got a good understanding of that. Whether or not you've thought about it, I don't know, but you're doing that kind of thing without using the racing line. So that's a good starting point. But I'm going to be hard on you every time you're not on the white line or nearly touching it. So every single inch of space here, or every I don't know how European how many European measurements we can go through, like millimeters. Every millimeter you're wide of this line is an extra degree or whatever of steering that you're going to need when you get into this corner, and therefore less speed that you can carry. So really maximise the entry, but you're still basically in the right place, give or take, a few centimetres. And you then go to the inside, and that's a pretty bloody good apex, to be fair. That's pretty much where I would be aiming to get to the inside. So it's pretty much near the end of that curb, actually. And you also have, without me telling you, realised it's quite a late apex here. If you were to hit it early, if you were to get to the inside like here, you're going to be going straight on into the gravel. So you've judged where you're placing the car well. This is a good start, is what I'm telling you. Like, you want the car to be in the right place. Certainly in this corner. But what's hurting you is there's some other places on the track we're going to get to where it seems like you know where the car should be, but it won't go there. Or you start going to the right place and then it runs wide or goes somewhere that you don't really want it to go. So that's the stuff we're going to fix. But anyway, this is a good start.
Are you
Go on.
Do you try to spot your apex on every track, like have some visual cue, or are you just doing it by intuition?
And by visual cue, do you mean like figure it out by...
Like right there you can see it went from red and white curve to dirt, right?
Yeah.
So is that do you go, oh yeah, that's my optimum place, I'm gonna try to hit that every time? Or do you look more broadly and like intuitively? You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, no, completely. It's a very good question. And these are the parts that are quite tricky to explain and answer. But it is mainly intuition, but with a lot of context each time. So I know, first of all, I'm not driving these laps blind, and except for the very first lap out of the pits, I've seen the track a bunch of times. So I've got a fair idea. I know it's a right-hander. I've got a very accurate shape of what this corner is in my mind. And I know that the apex, the fastest way, based on trial and error largely, is by getting to the inside of the track somewhere around here. Now, once you've got that in mind, if you remember that there happens to be an object like a curb here that I can use, or something visual that you can use to fine-tune your accuracy, like when I'm closest to this thing, that tends to be better. I see it on my lap delta, that tends to be better. Then you can start building in those visual cues. And normally it's a curb. It is normally a curb like this. Or in the tighter corners later on, I'm trying to climb right up the curb at the apex. I'm trying to shorten the corner and cut some of the inside off by using that. So there are some visuals, but the trajectory you take starts off a little bit by kind of intuition with context that you've built from seeing the track and driving it and feeling out what works. I know if I go in earlier, I run wider. I know if I go in later, it's slower than if I kiss the apex around about here. It's just an apex. You've probably heard me say this on Missed Apex, funnily enough, but the apex isn't like a codified, defined point. It's just where the racing line happens to meet the inside of the track. And wherever that happens to be, wherever the best version of that compromise is, that's the apex. And it might be somewhere completely different if there are different reasons. It could even be that the track's exactly the same shape as this, a different track, but there's a really grippy bit of asphalt just here. So you aim for that because that's the fastest way around there, not because it's the geometrically best shape. It's whatever works out as the best compromise on the lap timer, essentially. So it's a really long way of answering. But my main visual cue is the very inside, the tightest point I can reach without going too far and compromising it by, say, driving on the grass, a bit like that, for example. So, but sometimes the grass is good. Sometimes because the inside tyres are unloaded, grass is good. This is a bit too straight probably for that to be good. It's probably hampering some acceleration. But anyway, sorry, I've spent a long time on one corner. But all these things we talk about will apply to other corners at other tracks and maybe other corners on this track. So if I go into a lot of depth, that'll be why. Right, now next thing, you also know that the next corner is a left-hander. So you've already positioned yourself on the right. We could have probably gone faster through this corner, gone a little bit wider and still got back to the right. So that's the thing I would be thinking now is, if I got on the power earlier or carried a bit more speed through the exit, would that have been a negative, or could I have still got the positive of being over here to turn in at the right point and gained exit speed? And the answer is yes, and I'll show you my lap in a minute. But yes, there is potential to go further, but as a starting point, this is absolutely fine. So again, you know it's a left-hander, so you're starting on the right. Couple of feet there you could have used, but that's fine. And again, you're going to the inside with no help from any artificial racing line turned on. That's great. This is exactly where you want to be, so this is all good. And you're being patient with the throttle. So we're not on the limit of throttle application here. We could have got on slightly earlier, and I know that because when you exited, you had loads of room left over. So you could have got on the power slightly earlier. But again, as a starting point, you're in the right place, and you're not being stupid. You're not just flooring the gas and understeering off the track. So this is good. So like good baseline. Right, now through this next section, I need to go on board because I need to see the angle that you're seeing. So effectively, we've got like a left, a right, a kind of left, but they're all full throttle. And my aim, I haven't watched you yet through here on the replay, so I can't remember what you did. But my aim is just to go the shortest possible distance here. So let's see if you do the same. Yeah, you basically do. You pretty much go the shortest possible distance. The only difference being, I think we probably gave away a tiny bit of room here, and it doesn't sound significant, but we're looking for every single hundredth, every single thousandth, so you could have gone slightly shorter there. Every metre less is some kind of lap time. That's pretty good, though. I won't criticise you for that. You're going short distance there, and then a straight line to the left here. This is all great so far. This is all good. Right, now we get to a tricky corner. Okay, we've given away a tiny bit of angle into the corner there, but I'm just pointing it out, but you're in roughly the right place. Another good apex, and you're staying pretty tight round here. So a lot of people run wide at this point, but you're not. You're seeing that there's a compromise to be had here. Yes, you could have gone in quicker and gone deep, but then you'd have been travelling too far. Whether or not you've thought about that consciously, you've done the right thing. You've hit an apex, and then realised this is such a long corner that tightens. Actually, going a short distance here is a positive. That's great. That's very similar line to what I take. Maybe slightly tighter, but that's good. So this is all telling me that you definitely don't need these training wheels of the racing line on. Like, you're doing the right thing anyway. I think what we might need is reference points or methods by which to judge braking points or accuracy at certain places without using that racing line, just so you're kind of figuring it out more for yourself. Right, let's see what happens here. So obviously this is a straight. The idea is just to take the straightest possible line down to, I can't show you with the cursor when I hit that spacebar, so I'll show you here. Just like the straightest possible line to the turning point. So that's what you're doing, basically. This is all good. It's this next part of the lap that we're going to have a lot more work to do on. So this is where we're going to get into some actual useful detail. So you've got a really, really tight hairpin coming up here. There's a few different ways you can approach it. Let's see how you do it. So first of all, this is pretty good. This is closer than I've seen you in some places. Right, we've turned in already. So we're now aiming directly to the inside there. Yeah. That's not necessarily wrong, but we'll figure out whether or not it is in a moment. And you've now got down to 82k. I don't know what the minimum speed is for this corner. In fact, let me tell you what mine was. So my minimum speed in this hairpin is 75k. Okay, so 75 kilometers is the slowest speed I do through here. You're only 6 kilometers an hour faster than that at the moment. Do you go any slower? Almost. So you, at this point, this is the slowest speed you do through here, and you're doing 78. So you're going 3 kilometers an hour quicker than I go. The reason I use kilometers, by the way, in the UK we use miles, obviously, same as you guys, but it's just slightly finer resolution having kilometers, so that's why I use that. But you're going quicker than me at this point, and I feel like I'm on the limit. So already you're probably going slightly quicker than the car can take, I'd say, at this point. And you then try increasing the speed from here. If I go in super slow-mo, you're 79, 80, 81, and we're getting wider and wider, and your speed's building. So essentially what's happened here is you were actually going quicker than the car could cope at this point. You were trying to do the corner quicker than it can actually manage it. But the reason you tried to do that is actually a different... It's not because you were being too brave in the middle. It's because you'd gone too slow on the approach to the corner, and you felt it. So right now, where you're doing 81, well, you were doing 80 like here. So you were doing the minimum speed of the corner or somewhere near it well before you got to the corner. And this is where we get these W shapes on the data. If you slow it down too soon, there's then this temptation and tendency to try and speed up into the corner, which then takes all the weight off the nose and means you get to the middle going too quick. And so let's have a look at if the data kind of agrees with that. And yeah, it probably pretty much does. So this is your approach. You can see on the GPS here where we're looking at on the track. So you're the red, I'm the blue, and at this point here, right now, you've got down to that minimum speed we were talking about, or very close to it. You're doing roughly the same speed here that you end up doing all the way here. But you only needed to get to that speed, actually slightly slower than this speed, but for argument's sake, you only need to get to your minimum here. So there was no need to have slowed it down that soon. Essentially what I'm saying is you can just afford to brake later and a bit less hard. And that means you'll arrive at the minimum speed there rather than here, and you won't be tempted to get back on the gas too soon and have this little gentle speeding up and then slowing down on the exit. Because this is super common. I see this with basically every one of my drivers. If you lose time on a particular corner, it's generally because you've gone quicker through the middle than I would dare to do. And that's because of this overslowing. So on the next run, we'll try and just brake a bit later. Now, I haven't given you a marker for that, so let's have a look. Where are you braking? Let's have a look. I'll go on board. So you're braking just before this 100-metre board, because I can hear it. Now, so you're on the brakes here, and now let's have a look where I'm braking. So we'll look at my lap. If it loads, here we go. I just have to zoom around to that part of the track. Right, here we go. So I'm braking just after that board. So it's not a massive difference, but how hard we're braking is quite different. So you're up to about 100%, and I'm not. I'm kind of 70%. I'm not doing maximum braking. And the reason is this car doesn't have that much grip. There's no downforce. So unlike a Formula 1 car or something like F3 car with big wings, that you'd nail the brakes really hard and then like bleed off into the corner, you just can't get away with maximum braking in this car. You're on hard treaded tyres with no wings. So you have to kind of ease the brakes on so you don't have sudden weight transfer and lock brakes and that kind of thing. But you'll also notice that not only am I braking later, less hard, but I'm also staying on the brakes way longer than you because I need to. You didn't need to, so you came off the brakes because you'd already slowed it down. But because we're going to go later and slightly less hard, you're going to need to stay on them. And in fact, if you look at where my cursor is, I'm still braking there. So I'm like nearly at the apex. I've still got the brakes on, and I don't get back on the throttle until there. So I'm looking here on the throttle trace. Whereas by contrast, so I haven't finished braking till here. You'd already started accelerating back here. So that shows you why it tried to then go wide in the middle of that corner. That's one of the reasons. So we're going to focus on this particular corner on this next run, even though I'll talk you through the rest of the lap too. But there's loads to bear in mind. There's too much to think about if we try and fix the entire track. And we're not here to make Brian the best in the world at Okayama. It's more using this track to explore concepts like this. So, third and final thing. We saw it on the video, and we can definitely see it on the data here. You turned in way earlier than I would turn in. And obviously, every kind of moment that you've turned in early, every metre that you go in earlier means you're going to arrive at the inside with a much tighter angle to negotiate than someone who's gone in with a wider trajectory. So as a reference point, so we've given you one reference point, we're going to brake just after the 100 board. Next reference point is where we turn in. So I'm still tight to the white line here at the 50-metre board. Let's go a bit further. I'm still tight to the white line. You're on your way to the apex at this point. I'm still tight to the white line. And now we start to arc in. Now the tricky thing here is there is no visual reference here. This is just, I feel like if I begin turning gradually here, I'm going to meet the inside at the angle I desire when I get here. And that is a much, this is going to be the big comparison. This is why I'm able to exit and go to there, and your car was trying to throw you off the track on the exit. If you see the angle I'm at when I reach the apex, I'm effectively facing out of the corner already. You see, I'm definitely not facing that way to the gravel. I'm facing that way out of the corner. And if we just compare that to where yours was, and I'll just skip to that part. This is always the clunky bit, is skipping back to the right part of the lap. But iRacing haven't provided me with a tool for better comparison yet. Right, so Remember how I said I was pressed up against the white line until well after the 50-metre board? So now we can see that you've already peeled off. Now it looks way more obvious how tight this corner is going to be for you. If you were to draw the natural straight line from here, it's basically, if we say a straight line here is over that wall, isn't it? So you're going to have to really do some work to get through here. But not only did you not, you also went even quicker than I did through here. So you basically had no hope. You know, it was you giving yourself a big, big task to do. So now let's look at the angle you're at when you hit this apex. It's there, whereas mine was like there somewhere facing out. So we're going to turn in later. That's going to help this angle because you'll be coming in from over here somewhere. You'll have way less steering angle on. You're also not going to get down to your minimum speed until you're nearly at the inside. So we're going to be, it might feel a bit sketchy because you're used to like stopping it and then being safe and having this plateau of speed, which we can see here. This speed here, where you're like the same speed from there all the way to about there roughly. That's like a safety net. But we only want you to be at your minimum speed for a brief moment in time, because the only point on the entire corner that you need to be going that slow is right there at the tightest point. And that's why my speed trace goes down, 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 point straight back up again, because I've reached the minimum at the moment I need to be doing the minimum. Whereas yours has reached the minimum safely and early, and then you've just stayed there. This is exactly what everyone does. So this is not like a Brian thing. This is a completely standard thing that everyone does. And what it also causes, as we already mentioned, is generally it means you go through the middle a bit too quick. So you feel like you're being safe, but then even though you're going way slower, you end up off the track on the exit. So actually it's not any safer. It just feels like a comfort blanket to get it stopped early. So we're going to brake later. We're going to brake slightly less hard. If you find you miss the corner, we'll brake harder the next time, because it's obviously possible to brake too little. So we're going to brake just not quite as hard as you're used to braking. So instead of 100%, we'll come down to like 70% pressure. Pressure's easier to judge when you're not having to judge distance. At the moment, you're having to try and figure out how far you've moved your pedal. If you had a stiff pedal, you'd be judging how hard you were pressing it. It's like a subtle difference, but people are way better at judging pressure than distance. And that's why race cars generally have quite a firm pedal. But anyway, so we're going to turn in later. We're going to brake less hard and later. We're going to carry on braking until you know you've got it slowed enough, which generally means around about here. You can see where my braking ends. And we're going to try and meet the apex at this different angle. You see where that's where you met it, that's where I meet it. So we're going to move the apex later by doing this later turn-in. You're then going to have the right speed, the right angle, and you'll drive off that corner easy as anything. And your delta, if you've got your delta bar running, should go green massively. It's going to go red about here because you're probably going a bit quicker at this point because you're going, well, you're doing a shorter distance. But it shouldn't be red for very long, because if you're braking later and gentler, you're going to be going quicker into the braking zone. And provided you exit well, you're just going to gain bucket loads of time. So, right, that's it. Oh, and the final thing is we're going to go down to first gear, not second. So we're going to get all the way down to all the way down to first gear by there. So I'm down to first well before I'm into the corner, whereas you're in second all the way through. So that's also going to be giving you this push through the middle, and your revs are going to be low, so it'll exit more sluggishly. So we're going to get down to first gear, not second. That will destabilize the rear, so do it in a straight line if you can. When you go to first gear, do it whilst your wheels are still straight. But mine pretty much are, because I go down like there. I'm still up against the white line at that point. So there we go. Right, that's the main thing. Now, we can talk about the rest of the lap here, but there's lots more corners, and I actually don't want to give you too many other things to think about when I've just told you about 40 things to do in this one corner different. They are all going to be the same things, will apply to other corners later, because there are other corners where you're trying to go quicker than me through the middle. This one here, for example, similar thing, look, into this hairpin, first of the double hairpins. You go in slower, then you accelerate earlier, go through the middle faster, and go really wide on the exit. So it's exactly the same concept, but we'll get used to it at this hairpin first of all. So we'll just nail that. And it might go terribly wrong a few times, but when it goes right, it will unlock a massive amount more pace for you. And then I'm going to talk to you about something else. Before we finish this session today, there's another really important thing. In fact, let's just do this now, because it might come into play in a minute. The final thing is, you're going to hear me talk about this a lot, and that is your race driver feedback loop. So what I mean by that is, all the time, you're looking at what's happening, you're judging, is the car doing the thing I intend for it to do? And if the answer is yes, then you can carry on doing the thing you're doing. If the answer is no, then you need to change something. And what a lot of people do when they're relatively new is, they have the beginning of that feedback loop. They're like, right, I want to be over there. Is the car going there? Nope. And they go, oh, well, I guess I'm going wide. When that is not the end of the story. Because if your feedback loop is fast enough, if you've got it running, enough times per corner in your mind, you can fix any problem in real time. Just because it's running wide right now doesn't mean it needs to be running wide in 0.2 of a second's time. You can have fixed it if you react quick enough. So in this example here, so this is the reason I've gone on this lap is because this is such a great version of this. So at this point here, I guarantee you knew it was running wide. In fact, let's go on your onboard so we can see. So as you go in, right now, I want to be on the inside. Is it on the inside? Yes. Good. Carry on doing what you're doing. Now, I want to stay tight. Is it staying tight? Well, actually, no. You've already felt it start to run wide, and I know that because you've just cranked on a bunch of steering lock. Okay, let's move on a bit further forward. Is it going where I want to go? I kind of want to be over here. Is it going there? No. Can I carry on doing the same thing? The answer should be no. But do you carry on doing the same thing? Yes. You keep the throttle on, you keep the steering lock on, and you drive off the track. Whereas if your feedback loop was sharpened, if you'd had, if I'd told you this 6 months ago, and you'd had time to think about this whilst it's happening, you could have fixed that. You didn't need to go off. Just because we've gone in a bit quick, just because we've come in on a shallow line, yeah, it might not be the fastest lap in the world, but you can still not go on the grass. The moment you realise something's going wrong, you can fix it. And in this instance, the correct response is, I'm running wide because I've got too much throttle on for this angle of this corner. So remove the throttle, suddenly it would turn better. So so in our feedback loop, we want to realise what's happening, that it's not doing what you want it to do. Try and figure out why that's happening as quick as possible. And I mean, like, ideally, in a fraction of a second. But if it takes half a second, I think you still had long enough, even if it took half a second. So in this instance, it's running wide. What are the normal causes of running wide? Going too quick for the amount of steering that I want. I want this much steering. It's still running wide. The problem isn't the steering, because you've turned the wheel far enough. It went through last time with that much lock, so the corner hasn't changed shape, so it should definitely go through. So the problem is almost certainly speed or throttle input. Well, if it's speed, we definitely want to remove the throttle. If it's still running wide when you've removed the throttle, touch the brakes a bit, even if it's just a little bit. One or more of those things will fix it, and then you can carry on with the corner. And sharpening up that feedback loop is probably the number one thing that I work on with everyone all the time. Because the quicker you can recognise stuff, the quicker you fix it, and actually you end up with noticing tiny mistakes, and then they don't look like a mistake at all, because that is effectively driving on the limit. That is what it is. Driving on the limit is when a race driver can feel as early as possible when a thing is going wrong, fix it, and continue with the minimal possible compromise. Try again, fix it, try again, fix it, testing the throttle, trying more steering angle, trying less, trying all those things in a short period of time. But in its most basic form, if the car's running wide, it's running wide because of something the driver is doing or has done. So the sooner you can realise that, remove the problem, you can then get on with the lap without the problem getting bigger. And obviously in this instance, I can hear that the throttle's on, and I would have gone off, it would have rotated better, and then you'd be back on the power hard. Rather than having to wait until now to get back on the power, if you'd fixed it here, you'd have been back to full throttle by now, because you'd still be on that angle. So that's it. Right, so those are the things. Let's just recap all those things, because I've given you loads to think about. We're going to stay on the left-hand side longer, till we're well past the 50-metre board. We're going to brake after the 100-metre board. So I've gone on the wrong camera angle, but let's go back to here. So after, now we're going to brake, and less pressure. So 30% less pressure, or distance in your instance with the potentiometer pedal, than you were before. Stay braking longer, unless you feel like it's going too slow. If you feel like you've stopped it, maybe you use too much brake pressure, you can reduce it. But don't let that make you go through the middle part too quick. So just because you've had to reduce a bit of pressure here, doesn't mean you can then get back on the power really early here. You still have to be going slow at this point right here. Final thing, stay tight about here. So whereas before we apex really early and we then ran wide, we'll just try and apex slightly later and really under control, aiming a little bit out of the corner. It's not actually facing out the corner, but nearly. And then, final thing, if you feel it starts to run wide when you get on the power, just reduce the power. If you feel it's really running wide, get completely off the power. That's it. Those are the things. I've just given you tons and tons of things to think about, but let's go try it. And obviously all of that, only pay attention to it. Well, pay attention to it all the time, but only really judge the difference when the tyres are warm, because it's going to be different on lap 1 anyway. All the same principles apply, but you just won't be able to do it as quick as you do it then.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Right,
Sorry I just talked at you for ages. The talking gets less as we do more sessions. We've already said the stuff, so you won't need me to do a full massive explanation. That whole feedback loop thing, that applies to every corner, every track and every car. So you can start applying that like from here. Is the car going where I want it to go? If yes, carry on, or maybe even increase the thing you're doing. Like if you're giving it throttle, maybe you can give it more. If it's going wider than you desire, fix it as quick as possible. And obviously, like I say, tyres are cold, so it's going to be a bit slippery right now. I've still got a third of a cup of tea to drink here, so I'll do that whilst running straight. So, past the 100 metre board, 70% pressure, good. Nice, and get it to the minimum speed by the middle of the corner. Okay, so, that's fine. No, don't worry. First attempt. I'm going to go back and look at what speed we were doing. Right, so, remember how I was doing 75k by the middle? You were still doing 90k. That's the reason it ran wide. So, that was an impossibly fast speed. But that's fine. That's because you're not used to arriving in the corner having not already stopped the car. So, we're going to do a bit more of a trail brake into the apex next time. So, your initial braking was good, but you'll just need a little bit more than you had that time as you approach the apex. So we're going to blend the steering and the brake a bit more, basically. Obviously, I'm not expecting you to read the speedometer as you go through the corner. I'm just using that as like a reference to give you a rough idea how much too fast it was. But the approach and the braking point and everything was all good. That was all really good.
Ah.
Nice, good effort into there. So do exactly the same thing on the brakes this time, when you got on the brakes. But remember, you can still slow it down at any point. So if you're approaching the apex a little bit quick, just take a little bit more speed off just before you get there. So a little bit more just before here. Good. Perfect. Now go for it. Awesome. And you did exactly 75k at the apex that time. Exactly the same speed as me. Let's do that again. And we'll keep trying to brake later and later until you can't actually make the corner anymore. And then we know you're at the limit. So same thing there. When you sense it running wider than you want, fix it as quick as you can. Yeah, don't worry. That's just weight transfer because the brakes are too easy to press. So I think it looked to me like you just pressed a little bit too hard and all the weight came off the rear. I'll tell you how much I'm braking into that final turn as a reference. I'm about 60% pressure into that final turn and then I reduce it quite quickly. because the steering into the corner does quite a lot of the deceleration. Nice first corner. That was good. Really good.
Whoa.
Well controlled. I can see your squishy brake pedal is making your life hard. I can see how sharply the brakes come on when you press them. So don't worry, you're coping really well with that. Okay, so we're going to brake slightly later than last time. So a little bit past the 100-meter board. And get it slowed right down. So well done for recognising you were going too quick. So that time at the apex, we were doing 93 kilometres. So you were nearly 20k quicker than I managed it at. So that forced you to back off before the exit. So well done for doing that. We just need a slightly increased trail brake before that apex. So we'll get the last bit of the speed off before you get to the tightest point in the corner. So just a gentle brake into this one. Nice. Hey, fastest lap of the session. Good stuff. We haven't even really worked on any of the other corners. That's great. Go for it. Nice. You can start to feed in the power. Let's go. Awesome. Your lines through here are really good. This is nice. Okay, so you can brake at the same point again. Just make sure you've got all the speed off just before you reach the tightest point in the corner. Don't try and go through the middle of the corner with excess speed. So last moment. That's it. Then you can give them the power. Look how early you can get back to full power when you keep it that tight. That was excellent. Okay, so these next hairpins, remember, if it starts to run wide, get back off the power, keep it tight, like you do on that other hairpin. Nice, then you can get on the power early. Same for this one. Right, this next corner is a lot quicker than you think it is. So turn in early for this one and just go. Yeah. It's actually a full throttle corner, that one, if you get the line right. Not this one, though.
Oh, not this one.
Not this one. Just the penultimate one. Well done for getting off the gas. You did it, man. You kept it on. Yeah, the second to last corner is flat out as long as you cut it slightly. Well controlled.
Yeah.
A little bit too much grass, but well, you did hold it well. So let's do like 2 more laps, and then we'll look at the data and we'll make some notes.
Okay.
There's still so much more to talk about other things, but for today, this has been really good.
Whoa!
Again, that's your squishy brake pedal making it too easy to brake hard. So don't worry, like I'm taking that into account. When you locked up into turn 1, like I couldn't do that if I tried. I'd have to like use both feet on the pedal to do that. Okay, so same again, past the 100-meter board, 70% pressure, just get all of the speed off by the time you get to the middle of the corner. So slow in the middle. And then you can get on the power early. Nice.
Whoa.
That's nice through there. And you know what to do in these next hairpins. Same as before. Be at the slowest when you're in the middle of the corner. Nice. Look how easily it goes through there.
A little wide.
Yeah, probably just attempting that one a bit with a bit too much speed. Right, so this is full throttle if you turn in early and use the curb. Nice. Look how much quicker that is. But this one needs an early break. Because you're going so much quicker. Well done, man. That was great. Right, let's do another lap. Let's do one more. That final sector was really, really good. That's okay. Just finish the lap anyway. We've not been working on turn 1, so I don't really care. I don't care what the lap time is. The data will show us how much better you are in the second and third sectors. Again, that's just because it's too easy for you to put a load of brake pressure on. So, with keeping these same pedals, the only way around it is just to get very sensitive with your brake feel. Nicely held through there. That's good.
Oh, too early.
That's okay. You can just come off the brakes a little early, but make sure you're going slow by the middle. Nice. Okay, the angle is so much better. So much better. So we'll stay on this track for the next session, even though it's not necessarily a track that you're racing at. That's fine, man. Don't worry. Okay. Finish off the lap anyway, just so we've logged this lap.
Yeah.
But we'll stay at this track because there's other corners to work on, and I want us to build on what you've done today. Nice. The biggest thing is recognizing that something's going wrong and fixing it quickly, not just kind of accepting defeat when you're not yet defeated. That's probably the main takeaway. Awesome. So once you're across the line, just stop it anywhere, and I'll grab that data. Excellent. So if you just hop out of the car, I'll take that data. Let's have a look at your best lap. So you did this 43.6, so that's probably the one we'll take a look at. Let's grab the data. It's loading. There it is. That's the one we want. Right, so now your latest lap is going to be neon green. So we've got me in blue, you in red, and then your last session that we've just done in green. Mm-hmm. So it was your quickest lap, but you can see turn 1 was really, really slow. Like you made a big error on turn 1, yet you still went much quicker than you've been before. So let's look at the thing that we were actually focusing on, which was this corner just here. So you can see, although you are braking actually in a similar place to where you braked before, what you are doing is doing less pressure, because we can see here on the speed trace, the red one carried on straight down. You got it all the way down here. Now, yeah, okay, it's not perfect. The green line doesn't overlay the blue line exactly, but look at what you've now got. Pretty much a singular minimum speed that looks like the same shape as the blue one. Yours is just happening a little bit too late. We haven't perfected it. You haven't had enough laps to perfect it. But you do have a minimum speed, not a plateau all the way along going through the middle too quick. Yeah, you did probably go through the middle of the corner a little bit too quick, and that's why the line ended up like that. You had this elongated wide line on that particular lap. Other laps, it was definitely better. So I'll show you a different lap in a moment. But this is better than before. Like, definitely better than before already. You're turning in later. Still, you could go later than that. So I'll tell you what, let's drag in one of the other laps you did a couple of laps later than this, just to give an accurate picture. So let's go for this 48.445. The lap time doesn't sound good, but that's because I think we went off. So if this one's more representative, we'll take this. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think that one is slightly better. Certainly the line's better. Yeah, right. So let's get rid of this green one. I want us to have one to refer back to that's actually representative of what you're doing. Okay, so take that section. Yeah, the reason this was slower is because we had a spin here, didn't we? So
spin off. Yeah.
Yeah. So this would have been quicker. So this is the section. Okay, so You are braking later than before, and you are using a little bit less pressure, but you can still use even less. So that is something we can do, because if we have a look at where you finished braking, even on this one, which was one of your best hairpin laps, you've finished braking by now, and I'm still being forced to brake until there. I'm not doing it for fun. I'm doing it because I'm going so quick, I have to keep braking. You can see our speed at that point there, where you finish braking, I'm doing 40 kilometers an hour more speed than you, which means I have to keep going. I have to stay on the brakes. So that's something we'll work on next time, is effectively later braking again, less pressure again, so that you're still going quicker and you're forced to keep the brakes on here. And we'll still turn in a bit later. But you're halfway there now. You are like halfway. The line is definitely halfway there. You're making the exit. The difference now is you're actually making the exit too well. You see how you're able to get all the way to the right. And that suggests to me that maybe we're giving away some speed somewhere. And we can tell we're giving away some speed, because now we're down to 65k minimum. So we've just gone a bit too far the other way. But that's a great start. So first of all, well done for actually, putting some stuff into practice. I've said some words, and you've had to overcome a natural tendency to try and break some muscle memory here, and you've started in the right direction. So that is definitely positive. But you can see it's not done. You can see we need to be braking even less hard and even later, and have the trace a little bit more like that blue one, and we need to move the minimum speed back a bit. So right now your minimum is at 2,094 meters into the lap, and mine is about 11, 12 meters earlier than that. It's simply on the map, you can see that's mine, that's yours. We're going to fix that. So we're going to do that with a later turn in, and by staying on the brakes longer, because you have to stay on the brakes longer. And there's loads of other things around the rest of the lap where if we were purely here looking for lap time, we could gain you 3 or 4 seconds just by doing some other corners differently. But they're easy. But that's going to be easy stuff to fix. This is the hard groundwork. Getting used to being on the limit, being on the right line, getting the minimum speed briefly at the right moment, and in a really long, tight hairpin like this that comes at the end of a massive straight, this is like a worst case scenario. And this is one of the reasons I use Okayama, because you've got corners like this that if you can nail this, every other corner we go to is going to be a degree less difficult than this. So this is a good starting point. Just as a bit of a kind of a bit of a positive for you, the moment I told you to go quicker through this one, you absolutely did. Because look at our traces through the penultimate corner. The red is what you were doing before. The green is what you're doing now. It's now basically exactly what I'm doing. The only difference is I told you that, and you thought the next one was also fast, and so you tried to go into the next one a bit too quick. But with a couple of laps of practice, you'd nail that. With a couple of laps of practice, you gain tons of time through there. So
I felt better on all the turns pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, look at this one.
That one is, I think what I'm haunted about the late braking on that one is that I keep either locking up.
Yep.
If I wait too long, I think I gotta get used to
this last corner here.
Oh no, to the one we were working on.
Oh, the hairpin. Yeah.
The braking on that one is still, I felt so much better about the position, but the braking I'm still struggling.
Yeah, and it is going to be hard with a squishy pedal. It's just hard to move your foot just the right amount. It's much easier for me to lean on it with a learned amount of pressure, learn about how hard I'm pressing my leg. It's way easier to remember that than it is a particular distance. So you're doing a good job. But people have won world championships in iRacing with exactly the same equipment as you, or less good. So we can't use it as an endpoint excuse. It could be easier if you had different equipment, but we'll work with it until you do. Other hairpin. So hairpin number 1. It's actually hairpin 3, but hairpin number 1 of the double hairpins here near the end of the lap. Even that one is improved. Not all the way. We're not perfect yet. We're still running a bit wide, but it's way better. Turning point's better. Mid-corner speed's better. It's just fixing this one is going to fix other things too. So we've started at a very basic level along the journey of these concepts that are going to be second nature to you in a few sessions' time. But yeah, good job, man. That's a really good first run. That isn't the end though, because I need to make some notes just so we've got some things to refer back to. So we're going to mainly make notes around this. I can right click on this graph and type stuff. So let's just specifically go to the corner we were looking at, and we'll talk about this. So apologies for my bad slow typing. We have started braking slightly later, but we can go quite a bit further. Right, that's number one. Next note. I'll put it around about... In fact, I'll put it on the brake trace just there. We need to use less pressure, so we are forced to brake for longer and therefore keep weight on the nose on the approach to the apex. If I can hit the right keys, there we go. That's this little bit here that I'm still doing, that you're, you know, I'm breaking all this time here and you've finished already. So we don't want to give you the opportunity to finish. We're going to brake more gently. That means you'll have to keep braking longer. Right, next thing we're going to talk about. It's there. We need to move the minimum speed to around 11 meters earlier. Again, I know all this is very specific to this corner on this track, but like I said before, all this will unlock other corners on other tracks. So we're just using a specific to kind of get to a general rule. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, positioning. We don't want to turn in quite so soon. So I'll do this on the steering trace. So we haven't really looked at steering trace. It's quite subtle when you're doing a gentle turn like this, because you know you're only peeling off slightly earlier than me. You know, you're kind of still going straight with the green line, but it's just started back here somewhere. You know, you've begun here, so it only needs 1 or 2 degrees of steering lock more than me, and you end up 5 meters narrower when you get to the corner.
Yeah.
And that's what you can kind of see down here on the steering trace. If I just gradually move this, I've got 2 degrees, you've got 6. I've got 1 degree, you've got 3. I've got no degrees, you've got 5. I've got 6, you've got 7. Now we're starting to meet in the middle of it. But even now, I've got 2 degrees, you've got 9. You see it, and all the way, actually, all the way through now, the green one has more angle than the blue one. And because of the line the blue one's on, I only need a maximum of 85 degrees, whereas you're at this same point in the corner with 178 degrees of steering angle on, all because you've gone in narrow. So that's what the later turn in is going to help with. So let's pop that down here on the steering angle as well. Later turn in, and I'm going to put in brackets, not edging in even a little bit, will allow a smaller amount of steering lock when we get to the tightest part of the corner. Less lock equals more speed. There we go. Right, that's probably all the notes we need, because that really sums up what we were talking about there. Sometimes if you were like learning a track because you were going to race there next week or something, if you were preparing for an iRacing official series, we'd probably go over the whole lap and break it down into exactly what you can do in every single place. But really, this is the one we focused on, and that's what I'll kind of recap before our next session. So let's hit stop on the recording.